Hi, everybody. My name is Caesar,
And I'm Martha.
and welcome to the second episode of the Inner Widest Screen podcast, where
Two idiots who know nothing about movies talk about movies. So today's episode's looking a little different than our first episode. Right out the
yeah,
gate, we're already different.
right.
Already changing things up.
That in studio thing did not last as long as I thought it would initially. No, but we will be back in studio very soon. We just had some unforeseen circumstances, but this will also just give us an idea of whenever Zoom is necessary to just test out the water, see how it is. See if y'all
Yeah,
like it
maybe
too.
we can get some guest stars on here through Zoom.
Definitely.
Because our studio that we work with right now is a little cramped.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, to say the least.
In the future, maybe
Right.
Zoom could be an option.
Zoom
So,
would definitely be good.
in a way, I'm glad that this, happened the way it did.
Yeah.
But I think probably by next week, hopefully, if all things
If
turn
everything
out
goes well with what's going on right now, I think next week we'll definitely be ready to go back in studio. So,
Yeah.
if y'all like this or you guys have any feedback, by the way, of how we do our podcast, we do have social medias open. Our YouTube is open. Everything's open now. So, we're on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Um, they're all different ads actually.
We
So I'll
got it
read
all.
they're all at. So, if you want to find us on YouTube, we're at In a Wider Screen Podcast. On Twitter, we are at In Wider. TikTok, In a Wider Screen, and Instagram, In a Wider Screen Podcast. So, if any feedback to leave to us, so all those who listened to our first episode, thank you so much.
Yeah, we got some viewers, which was nice
It was
to
really
see
nice.
and
It
surprising
was
because
nice.
I was expecting 2 viewers and
Right.
it was going to be us.
It was nice to see a number that was greater than 0.
Yeah,
That honestly
yeah, absolutely.
exceeded my expectations. So
It really did. Yeah, it was nice to see.
And
So thank you guys for watching.
absolutely, and some people reached out to me personally with some feedback and everything, which we really really appreciate because we just want to improve every week as much as we can. And especially this week is going to be very interesting because this will be our first main episode where we're going to talk about a specific movie. And Martha, if you want to tell them what movie we're talking about today, or you could probably already tell by my background.
You could guess, yeah. So today we are going to be talking about Knives Out. This was a 2019 movie by Ryan Johnson. It
Yep.
was it was a classic from right out the gate.
Oh, yeah.
So I love it.
One
Another thing I do want to mention before we start
Okay.
is I am looking kind of ridiculous, a little overdressed today.
oh no, I think it's
But that just, but it just so happens that I have almost an identical dress to one of the characters. So if anyone can figure out what character I'm dressed like, shout out to
yeah.
you. You should let us know in the comments.
Let us know exactly. Let us know in the comments.
yeah,
and if-
you can,
and the first person who
tweet
gets it
at
right,
us or something.
right, first person who gets it right gets pat on the back.
A virtual high
A
five.
virtual. There you go. Exactly.
There you go.
I actually wanted to ask you before we started this. This is actually not. Neither of us is our first time watching this movie, so I just wanted to get an idea of how you first saw the movie and what your impressions were after your first viewing.
Yeah. So I have a funny story.
Okay.
The first time I saw it, I saw it in theaters with one of my friends. And I'm normally very good about time management at the movies. Like I know what time I need to get there
Sure, yeah.
to, get snacks and go to the bathroom beforehand. I don't know what happened this time, but I was like, all right, I really need to go use the restroom. So I left right before the movie started, thinking I would have enough time.
Yeah.
I ended up missing the first minute of it. And I came in and I was like, I asked my friend, I was like, hey, what did I miss? And she was like, a murder. I was like,
my
right
God.
out the gate. Okay. So I missed the most important part of the movie
Man.
because I was in the bathroom.
That's crazy
but-
with Knives Out because most movies, you miss the first minute or 5 minutes or whatever. It's like you really miss nothing. But
Yeah.
Knives Out, there's so much detail, literally in every shot that it's like.
Yes.
And especially the
yes.
murder's the opening scene of the movie. Yeah, but I mean,
Is-
it
is,
certainly
finding the murder. Yeah.
right. But I'm assuming it didn't ruin your experience because you ended up loving it the first time.
No, I ended up figuring out most of it, the rest of it. Because again, I went into it kind of having an idea of what it was going to be about. I
Right.
had my theories going in, which is something that I do want to talk about later, is what theories we had during the
absolutely.
movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like first impressions after missing that first minute, I was really brought into the movie from the beginning. Like I thought the cast of characters was just amazing. Like, well, one, because you just see this star-studded cast of just like everyone.
Oh my
I mean,
god,
you
yeah,
have
incredible.
you have Chris Evans, and you have
Oh well, yeah. So basically,
Daniel
this stars,
Craig.
yeah,
Like,
it
you
stars,
just-
yeah, everyone. It stars Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Toni Collette, Lakeith Stanfield,
Yeah.
Catherine Langford, Jaden Martell, Christopher
it's
Plummer.
the list
Incredible.
goes on.
Yeah.
It's an
It's
incredible
one of the most
cast. I think
incredible
they all did a
casts
wonderful job.
put together I've seen in a long time, and they all
It
kill
really is. Yeah. It was. I think just like seeing them like really brings you into the movie. I thought like overall it was just like it's a fun and enjoyable movie to watch, and I love murder mystery. So as soon as I like just seeing the trailer before it came out and like seeing the whole thing where he's like he says the line like I suspect foul play, and and like that hooked me from there. I was like, I need to see this movie.
See it. Yeah.
And I really really enjoyed the movie.
That's great. Yeah, because I also saw it in theaters like you did. I was fortunate enough to go to like an early screening of this, like a few days before it came out in theaters, and yeah, I loved it like first bat too. Like I remember the crowd being full that day and just reacting like to all of the different twists and turns this took was just so cool. And so I had definitely been really wanting to rewatch it since it came out. So I was really glad that we got to do this because now rewatching it again, I love it even more somehow. I think it's
Yeah.
an amazing movie. So before we fully jump in now to this discussion, I just wanted to read some quick facts about the movie. That's cool. So, like you were saying, this is written and directed by Rian Johnson, who is most known for directing Star Wars: The Last Jedi, which I'm sure it's everyone's favorite Star Wars movie. And he also directed Brick, The Brothers Bloom, and Looper, which I have not seen any of those yet, but I really want to. I already read the cast out. It was released November 27th, 2019. It was made on a $40 million budget, which I have to assume had to be majority for the cast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you get a cast like that,
I
gonna
feel
be
like
pricey.
39 of that went to the cast and 1 million went to like the house and everything else probably. And
yeah, definitely.
and ended up making about $300 million worldwide. 311, which is a pretty crazy number. And it was nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Academy Awards, the 92nd Oscars. And then do you have the synopsis for it?
Oh, you know what? I forgot to bring that up. So let me bring that up.
I know you had something very interesting you want to do the synopsis. So I'll let you do that.
All right. The circumstances surrounding the death of crime novelist Harlan Thrombey are mysterious, but there's one thing that renowned detective Benoit, how do you say his name?
Oh, dude, I was
Blanc.
like trying to think. Benoit, is it in it like Benoit?
Benoit. There we go.
Right?
Yeah, it's like
I just go by
French, yeah.
I just think of it how Lakeith Stanfield calls him Benny, which I think is so cool.
Benny.
Yeah, I just call him
Benny
Benny.
Blanc. Yeah. Okay. One thing that renowned detective Benoit Blanc
Are you sure you're the right
knows
person to
for
be doing?
sure. No, I'm not the right person to be doing this. I don't know how to read. Okay. Detective Blanc knows for sure everyone in the wildly dysfunctional Thrombey family is a suspect. Now, Blanc must sift through a web of lies and red herrings to uncover the truth. Dun dun dun.
Other than your like
All right.
20 mistakes in that, I think you did a good job with that, and I think with more practice,
Thank you.
that's something we can do. It's a good job there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's my new future job is just being the narrator for those movies like In a World.
Oh my gosh,
I'm going to
you're gonna be
I'll work
you're
on
gonna be
that.
that guy, the trailer guy.
Oh, absolutely.
If you can read, you're gonna have to learn to read first.
Yeah, I got to learn how to read. That's going to be my first task. But once I do that, it's over.
But haven't you been trying to learn how to read for like the last? I mean, ever since I've known
21
you,
years.
right?
Yeah.
How's that going?
Yeah. Not well.
After that, I don't think it's going very well.
Yeah, I think it's gotten worse actually.
I actually think somehow it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
But
I'll work on that.
please do. But I will say, rewatching the movie, like the main thing that just stuck out to me was just the direction with Rian Johnson, and well, not his direction, his writing too, honestly, because based off Last Jedi and based off this, there's a lot of misdirection in his movies. It's like
Yeah.
he wants you to think it's going one way when it's really going another. And
Yeah.
I think in Last Jedi he did that with the Star Wars characters, and that worked for some people. Obviously, did not work for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
He does a similar thing here too.
Yeah, you could definitely see like his style in directing, and I think in certain cases it worked. I think I don't want to get too deep into Star Wars because that's
Right.
obviously not the movie we're talking about, but I think in some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't. In Star Wars it didn't work too well. I don't think personally, as like a devoted fan to Star Wars, I am not a fan
And
of
I
the movie.
guess as a casual
but-
fan of Star Wars, I am more in favor of it. But like I said, that's not
Yeah.
what we're talking about today.
But that's not the point. So going back to Knives Out, I think that's a case of where it did work. I think
Right.
it was an interesting style. I like having that whole like this is the murder is at the forefront of the movie.
Right.
It's not going to be like a who done it technically because you already know who did it.
Right.
It was he
You
he
think
did
at the
it, but
beginning
it's-
it was Marta, and then it just turns,
Yeah.
rather than being a whodunit, it turns into a thriller when you think she's responsible, because then you're just wondering, is Blanc gonna catch her? And
yeah.
but the crazy thing is, like, in most movies you don't want the killer to get away with it because of the killer, but because you know how it happened,
Yeah.
you know how good of a person she is, you're rooting for her to get away
Yeah,
with it.
which I think is just a testament to the incredible character writing
Yeah.
that was done here. Like I think the characters all were just so fleshed out so well. Like they did such a good job of portraying who they were supposed to be. Marta
Right.
was a genuinely good person,
Good person.
and you can very clearly see that. And then the rest of them were all serious assholes, and you could see that. Yeah,
Yeah,
like they were
absolutely.
just but they were subtly but very loudly horrible people,
Right.
and it's
yeah.
so good that he did that. Yeah.
And I love that all the members of the family are all subtly different. Like, they all have their subtle differences in what makes them who they are, but at the same time, they're all, like, the same at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they're all the same. I think they're all filled like they're all fueled by this like greed and this like
yeah.
they know that they have the money.
and this
they
sense
know
of, like,
that they
entitlement. Like,
They,
that they
they're
have.
so entitled, and they can't see past that. Like they can't see people as who they are. And I think like one of the running jokes in the movie, which I made a note of, was the whole like, where is Marta actually from?
Oh my
because
God, yes.
throughout the movie you see them like, oh, she's a sweet girl, she's from Colombia, or
Right.
like, oh, she's from like just
Right.
like a bunch of random
one says
countries.
she's from Ecuador, one says she's from Paraguay, and then Chris Evans is like Brazilian girl. Like, they just,
Yeah, like
it just really just shows the racism, honestly,
And-
that's in the family, and like where they feel
Yeah.
like people like her stand compared to where they stand.
yeah.
It's just like
They don't
clearly do not care
and
about her.
they try, but they're trying to like show like, oh, like we do care about you, you're part of
Right,
the family,
right.
but also we don't care enough to actually get to know who you are.
Right.
And so
The
like
same
that's
way,
a
too,
really
that-
interesting little thing.
Right. The same way too, how everyone was telling her at the beginning, we wanted you at the funeral, but we got outvoted.
I was outvoted.
And the
yeah.
first time I heard that, I was like,
That-
oh, maybe that person really wanted her there. But then everyone else says it too, and it's like, okay, clearly
Everyone else
nobody
says it.
wanted you there.
Nobody
They're
wanted.
just
Yeah.
saying it to make you feel like they care about you, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's insane how they treat it. But
It's yeah.
and
So I think that was really interesting with the characters and how they were portrayed and their actions in the movie.
and with a cast like that, I mean, they all like nail it in that respect too.
They do.
they really,
they
really all-
absolutely do.
I think out of the family, like besides the main characters, I would say probably my favorite character out of the family was probably Michael Shannon's. I thought he was just so funny. And like,
Yeah, the Walt, right?
well, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I think he did a really good job.
Some of his lines were actually improvised, especially in that scene where before the will reading, like when Chris Evans is telling everyone to eat shit, and Michael Shannon's like, "I won't eat one iota of shit" or something like that.
Oh,
And he's like, "You want to
Yeah,
see?
no.
Maybe they left you a glass of milk in your will, like piece of shit or something like that." Like, then those were improvised.
yeah.
I was like,
I think.
those are so funny.
I think they all did a really good job. So the one thing that I did have a problem with Like, I think that they did an incredible job with characters, but there was one character that was just like, why are you there? Which was the youngest kid.
Oh, Jaden Martell. Okay,
He was on his phone the whole time.
The Nazi kid.
Yeah, the Nazi kid. And so here's the problem with it, because normally, you know, there's background characters and it's fine, but with a movie like this that it's so centered around like each individual character and their personalities and how they play into the plot, it's just weird to have this one character that's kind of like just there, and like he has his like one moment that he was needed for the plot, which was like being in the bathroom to overhear the fight like between Ransom
to the plot, right?
And so like that was the one and only thing. And what really gets me with it is that we've seen him, I can't think of, I think it's like Hayden or something. I'm trying to remember his name, but
it's Jaden Martell. He was in the
there you go.
Most known for the It movies.
And he did an incredible, like I've spoke about it in the first episode. I love it. I love that this cast of children is did such incredible acting. And so to have this incredible cast and then include this kid who is also a very good actor and then give him like 2 lines.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, what's the point?
Right. And I think that's something that you unfortunately falter when you have such a huge cast, such a talented cast, is that you're not going to find enough screen time to give each of them such a huge part, which is why I guess I admire what they did with everyone. So at least everyone had their own personality, their own staple in this. But I get why you're saying with his character in particular. Like, I think the only line I remember him saying that like was memorable to me was like when they read the will and he like called Marta like an anchor baby or something like crazy like that. But but I think it's kind of the same thing with Catherine Langford too. I think she's on the opposite end, I guess, politically. She's like, they call her SJW, whatever, and he's like the Nazi kid. I feel like honestly it's just him trying to criticize how both of them are kind of like where they, no matter where they are politically, at the end of the day, they're still part of this family. Like, they're full of terrible people. Yeah. And it's like, even her, with the political beliefs she has, you would think she would look out for someone like Marta, but at the end of the day, she just goes along with her own self-interest. And
I think that's what's really interesting about Catherine Langford's character is because the whole time she's like, from the very beginning, you're like, the help? Are you kidding me? Like, these are people.
Yeah, you think she's like on her side the whole time. Right.
And then by the end of it, she gives her up. Like, she's like, oh, well, I have dirt on her. That can help us. Like, because in the end, it's like, she's going to pretend like she's going to protect her. But over everything else, it's like blood is thicker than water. Right. And so she's going to help her family. Not because I don't think it's because like she necessarily cares about her family, but because she cares about the money that her family needs. Right.
Even though she doesn't even know that her mom is stealing that money too.
Yeah, she doesn't know that, and for that I think she's the one character that I think can be somewhat redeemable, because even in the end you do see she does have remorse, right, for, you know, selling out Marta and telling like, oh, about your mom, like, I'm sorry, I didn't want to, but I was worried, right, and like still like it's not forgivable, but it's somewhat
she's the only
redeemable
character to show any form of like remorse. But it's still, like you're saying,
and like really genuine remorse, right, not something that's like something to feel bad for to get something out of it, right, you know?
No, definitely. And I just also want to talk about too, like, I know you're a fan of murder mysteries in particular. I haven't seen a lot of them, but I think what was so cool about this one too is that it takes a genre that's like so very, I mean, it's been done throughout history so many times, but they make it so modern with this, like not only just referencing like with Toni Collette as like her character, yes, like we're talking about Instagram and Google or whatever, but also too like. Wrote down... Oh, go ahead.
Flam is the name of her company that she starts.
Forgot.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned this because I did want to talk about this and the style of being able to bring in like the old like the old kookiness of like a murder mystery, but bringing it into like modern day times and then making it like clear like this is still a modern day movie. Oh, yeah. And I actually read an article about it where they interviewed him, Rian Johnson, and he mentioned Agatha Christie, who I don't know if you know.
She's a famous writer. Yes, probably the most
famous. Like she's known as like the queen of murder mystery. I love her books. I have a couple of them myself. So if you ever want to borrow them,
definitely, I'll take one. Only thing I'm familiar with her is I saw Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah, that one's a good one.
Yeah.
I like, and then there were none. That one's a good one too.
And then Death on the Nile
But-
too. I know that's coming out. That's her based off her book too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyway.
I'm excited for
Yeah,
that one.
anyway, sorry.
But she so he spoke about Agatha Christie and how in her books, because she wrote over the span of a few decades. So when it was a book written in the 1920s, you could tell that it was in the 1920s or the 1930s, 40s, 50s. And he said like because of that was his inspiration to keep it very modern and
Yeah.
have characters like Joni with her flam and like her whole lifestyle company
Right.
and things like that, and the Nazi kid on his phone the whole
Yeah.
time, like things like that. So he made sure to keep it modern, and I think that was really interesting to see it contrast with like the overall tone of the movie
Right.
being very
Old,
old timey.
which I
in
love
a
that he
way.
kept it that way because
Yeah.
like not only with the house and all the props you see in there, which are like really cool, like
Yeah.
unique stuff that they put in that house, and then even the music too. Like it's a very subtle score, but it's a very like a murder mystery mood that it sets you
Yes.
in. And then on top of that too, they shot this digitally, but it looks like film. So
Yeah,
um,
it was the little details like that
Right.
just really hit home.
Right.
So like it's
so it's
this is old.
right, even though it's a very feels much more like a modern story being told too, which I think it
Yes,
does really really
yeah.
well. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And then speaking of like the details, I do want to mention like I think the outlay of the house, like the way that it's all set up, I think is like really
I think it's so cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think the attention to detail in terms of that, because I mean you have to if it's like everything is a clue.
Right,
You
and
know?
essentially, and most of that movie is set in the house, so you really have to make
Yeah,
that
so
location.
the whole that's like the
work.
whole thing. So I think that was really interesting to see, like from like the trick window to like
Yeah,
how everything is just like so well planned out. I think that's another little detail that I really like about that.
definitely. I would assume had to be like a lot of logistics that went into that, and they like.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
first of all, I
absolutely.
mean, I know that they found that house in Massachusetts, and then I think for some of those rooms they kind of like built sets, incorporating into the house. But most of that house is like, that's how it looks. So it's pretty amazing
Yeah.
how they were able to find a place like that. I think it's so cool.
That's like so perfectly detailed for that. Yeah, I
No,
think
definitely.
that was really interesting.
And then something else that we didn't mention too, talking about how it plays with genre, like, I mean, it does turn into a thriller at some point, but I think one of the coolest things is by the ending, it just shows that it was actually a whodunit the whole time. Anyway,
Yeah.
because I remember
it goes back to the original
right
plot. Yeah.
because I remember seeing it in theaters, and when they revealed at the beginning that you think like Martha did it, I was like, what? Like, where can they go from here? Because it's like you expect that to be revealed at the very end, and then it turns into that thriller.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm on board, and then at the end, it's like, wait, it was like
Surprise.
it's
Yeah.
like surprises.
I think in terms of like having that fun twist, I think he really nailed it.
Yeah,
I feel like it isn't, I don't know. How do I, okay, in terms of like theories that I had going into this movie, I definitely didn't see that coming. Like I wasn't expecting for it, like the twist to be, here's the murder,
right.
believe it, just kidding. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
You know, like it was, but it also wasn't. You know,
Wasn't.
like it was misinterpreted.
Right.
And I think that was really interesting. That was something that I didn't see coming. My original theory going into this movie was that knowing that he was a author of these murder mysteries, my thought was like he wanted to do something, like he did this on purpose. Like he planned it
I've
out.
heard that theory before. Yeah,
Yeah, that was what I had originally thought. Like I was like, this is either one, like he wasn't actually dead and he was just like planning this whole thing to like
mess with his family. Right.
or he really did. Like he was just like, all right, I'm tired of living. I've
Right.
done
He's just,
my
like,
time.
legit, like, I'm
I've
out.
done what I needed to do. I'm out. Bye. So like that was like my theories going into it. So seeing like going in and like he did kill himself, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was right. And then I was like, oh, okay, never mind. There was a lot more
But
to
it makes it so sad because you realize he killed himself literally like over nothing. Like he didn't
Yeah. And that is another thing that's like it
he didn't have to
it's
die.
hard
You know.
to hear. He didn't have to die. Yeah, and he was the only, well, I was gonna say he's the only one in the family with like a kind heart, but you don't even get to see that because you get just a couple minutes with him
Right.
before
Yeah.
he kills himself, and then
I
that's
think
it.
you definitely see most of his heart with his relationship with Marta.
With
Yeah,
Marta, I think
yeah.
that's where he really like his.
I mean, the fact
like,
that he
his
was willing to
personality
give
shines
like
through.
all his stuff, like all his
everything
everything
to
to
her.
her.
Yeah. but here's an alternate opinion with that.
Okay.
So either like he could be like, because even Marta mentioned it. She was like, well, why would he give all the money to you? And she's like, how you considered that it wasn't about me and it was about you guys?
Right.
And it was like, so was it really him being kind to her, or was it him spiting his family
Right.
because they were horrible people?
I think,
Which also, I
feel
guess,
like it could have
plays
been
into
both, honestly. I think it
Yeah,
just
I
happened
think
to
it was
work
a little
out
bit
to
of
where like the family would be like, there you go.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I can see that.
But
So
I also think too, like that ending works so well where it's like, it turns out like things happening the way they are is because Chris Evans is just so good at like committing to that. Like,
yeah,
I think because you go into this, you're used to him being Captain America, like you're used to him being the hero,
yes, yeah,
and then I just think like, so in your mind already, you're kind of just like trying to convince yourself, okay, he can't be like that.
He can't be.
And then
Yeah.
his family is always saying like, oh, like he's the worst one out of all of us, blah blah blah. And then you see how bad the family is, so like, or maybe he's like misunderstood. Like maybe there's something there.
He's the black. If he's the black sheep of the family, and the family's
Right.
horrible people, like logically, it would make sense that he would be the one who actually like cares about other people.
Yeah,
But that is definitely not the case. He only cares about himself.
definitely.
So
and then
yeah, so that's
and then
kind of
like
the issue.
he's just so charming. So it's kind of like, okay, I like this
is.
guy. And
He's
then
very
he
charming.
shows up to the house telling everyone to eat shit. And then like they read the will, and he's like in the back there laughing, and it just is like you're just like,
he's
I
having a
like
grand
this
old
guy.
time.
Right? And at the time you think, okay, he's
Yeah.
reading it because he like sees his family like all upset about it. He's like whatever, and then you realize he laughed because he already knew Marta was gonna get everything, so he just showed up.
Yeah.
He didn't show up because he thought he was gonna get something. He showed up because he knew they were gonna freak out and flip.
Yeah,
Which
and I think
It's so cool.
yeah, again, it shows like who he is as a person, but also it doesn't entirely say like he's a bad person because he wanted that for his family.
Yeah.
But it was more like he knew that they deserved it. So
Right.
that also kind of plays into like maybe he was a good person, but also he definitely was not.
Definitely. And I was hearing Ryan Johnson basically saying like there's always that cliche in murder mysteries that obviously like the most obvious suspect is not going to be the one. Like it's like, okay, it's so
Yeah.
obvious, it's obviously not going to be him. And so you
Yeah.
think it's going to kind of go that same way, and then ends up, well, actually the one who's pretty obviously the
It was
one.
the most obvious.
Yes, like clearly he's
It
the
was
one.
him.
It was him. So I thought that was cool that they played with that. And
Yeah.
I guess it made it more believable too, because obviously like once he picks on Marta after reading the will, and they go to that restaurant, he's like trying to help her. You're like,
Yeah.
you don't know where his
Again,
intentions
you get
are at.
confused.
Right?
Yeah, it seems like he has genuine intentions because he is so charming.
Yeah.
You want to believe him. Like, you don't want to see
Right.
him as being the bad guy. Because, again, you're still in the mindset of, like, he knew that his family got what was coming to them because clearly he understood that they were bad people.
Right.
Which is why he never got along with them. So a lot of points are leading to maybe he wasn't a bad guy. He just really was just a misunderstood, privileged white boy, you know?
Right. And then
Which
and
is
then
a very hard sentence to say.
yeah. And then he goes on to say his intentions are like, you know, give me a piece of the will or whatever. So it's consistent with the character
Yeah.
that he still would do it for his own selfish reasons.
Yeah,
you know?
he's still selfish, but at least he's willing to like help Marta out, which
Right.
maybe shows that he is more like his grandfather in that he was doing it for selfish reasons,
Yeah.
not or leaving his family out of the will, but in the end he was still helping someone who needed it.
Yeah.
You know? So again, it all plays into like it's misleading to
Yeah.
think that like he was the most obvious character but also not at all.
Right.
And I think
That's just so
overall
clever
his
with how he
character
wrote
was
that.
just
And
yeah.
I just also found it so funny too, like even with that there was some kind of like inconsistency with his character too, like you're saying, like it was very misleading because then Martha would be confused about something and Ransom just knew she had to do this, like when like
Yeah.
she was like, wow, there's only like one piece of evidence that you need and it's at that office, and then they go to the office and it's burnt down. She's like, oh no, there goes your only piece of evidence. And you think like,
Yeah. And
the first time I watched it, I think like, okay, like he needs this because it's gonna benefit him too. When really, in reality, he's just trying to do as much as he can to set her up, and like,
yeah.
it's just crazy.
To make her like think herself to just like confirm the fact that she's the one that's guilty
Right.
in her mind.
Exactly.
So
Because the
yeah.
second
so I
time
think-
you watch it, I don't know. The last time I watched it, I just watched him. I was like, it's so obvious it's him. But then
Yeah,
but
looking back, you realize it's him. It's obviously him. Why did we not see that? Yeah.
See that? But just the way you watch it the first time, not knowing anything, I mean, it makes sense with like how it's written. So I think Chris Evans I think especially for me, just watching it the second time, he plays a really good villain. So
Yeah, he really does.
I just wanted to shout him out on that one.
Yeah, I think.
And then speaking too of the other cast, Ana de Armas too. This was like her first lead role I've seen from her. I don't know if she's done a lead role before.
Yeah, and she's done a lot of off to the side roles, but this is her first.
I'm mostly familiar with her in Blade Runner 2049, which I don't know if you've seen yet. We talked about it. Oh, I talked about it.
Yeah, we talked. You talked about it.
Yeah, I talked plenty. No, she's great in that one, so it was just really cool to see her in a lead role. But no, what'd you think?
She did such an incredible job, and we talked about how like all the cast of actors, like it's a star-studded cast and they all did an incredible job, but I think she was given more of an opportunity to really show that she was a good actress. And one scene in particular which watching the movie the first time really threw me off because I was unsure of like why she did this, but overall I'm like, I love that this was added in there. And it was the scene right after he killed himself. And she's in the hallway and she's like crying and she's freaking out, and then she just like composes herself. And she's like, all right, let's do it.
I need to get out of here.
And the way she just like was able to just switch just like that, I think that shows like one, like she was a really good actress. Like that's an amazing scene for her to do. But then on top of that, I think it just shows so much about the character, and like it because that's what confused me, because she was so sweet and she was so like she genuinely felt bad about the whole situation. But in that moment I saw her switch, and in my head I was like, maybe she wasn't, like maybe she didn't really feel all that bad, maybe like this was planned out or something. So when I saw that scene the first time around, my first thought was like, maybe she did this on purpose. Maybe she actually was the murderer.
It's crazy how wild theories can get like in your first time, honestly.
So I think she just did a wonderful job
great
with it.
And there's even other scenes in the movie where it's like she's able to flip into someone that's, well, not necessarily flip, because I think the part of her character that's always able to stand up for herself is there. But for example, like when Walt encounters her outside her apartment and he's like, we can get you lawyers and stuff. Well, I have Harlan's resources now, so I have access to the lawyers and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. She gets smart really fast.
Like she shows very clearly,
Yeah, and like it's just because it's like, is it like a fight or flight response to this whole thing, to this whole situation? Like it's like in that moment when you see her, is that her mind going like, all right, I have to do this now to save like the people I care about, like my mother, like
her family,
and that's her. She's like, all right, time to like, there's no time to cry anymore. I need to like get on this. Like I need to save my mom.
And that makes her like, that's much more of a character you want to root for sure. Like seeing how
and again that plays,
protecting her family.
It plays into her kind heart in that she's like, I just lost my friend, but instead of crying over it, I'm gonna do what I can to save my mom and make sure that he didn't die in vain. You know? So again, it plays into more of like, she's just a good person.
And especially even the line at in the final scene with Daniel Craig is like, whereas like, how did she know she was giving him the right vial anyway? He's just like, well, you're just that like good of a nurse. Like you're just a generally good nurse and like a good person.
You're a good nurse. You know what you're doing. So.
And then one more thing too is with her is I loved that character trait of her vomiting when she lies. I thought it was just some random thing they put in there to be funny, and I thought it was funny, but then it ends up paying off at the end.
It pays off.
So I just thought that was really cool.
It was, I think that was a neat little thing. I think it was, which like brings up like the whole foreshadowing aspect of the movie. There was a lot of foreshadowing from, one to like the whole vomiting when she lies to, he had that whole speech about like how his family, or like they don't even know what's a real knife and a fake knife.
Right.
And then by the end of it, he goes to try and kill her and it's a fake knife. So I think in terms of like foreshadowing, I think he did a really good job, and it was very blatant. It was very upfront about it, which I think was an interesting choice. When you think of like murder mystery, it's all obvious. It's very obvious, but because he was making it so modern, I thought maybe it would be one of those movies that had a lot of symbolism in it. So throughout the movie, I was constantly making notes of like what could possibly be a symbol. And like I wrote down him playing the keys like every time during the interrogation.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's just get back on track. Like where were they?
Yeah, and I looked it up, and it was just plain and simple. He was like, oh, I was just like me trying to get the questions back on track.
Right.
Like it wasn't anything deeper than that. So
No,
I think
I thought that was so funny. I love
in
that.
terms of like symbolism, there was really not much there. Everything that was like in the movie was supposed to be there.
It's pretty straightforward.
It's very straightforward, yeah. And like if it was something that was going to foreshadow it, it's going to be right in your face and you're going to see it.
But I will say, even a line like that where he's talking about they don't know the difference between a real knife and a prop knife, I didn't remember that line. But that line was pretty throwaway. So
yeah,
I thought it was pretty cool at the same time that he still had some throwaway lines in there. Like even Jamie Lee Curtis at the beginning, she's like she and her father had a secret way of communicating, and that's not something you really think about until the very end when she like reads the note that he wrote her about her husband cheating on her.
Yeah. Like, see, for me, that actually was the opposite response because I saw she was like, "Oh, you have to play a game with Dad." And that's how you like you loved him. And I like saw the letters with the burn marks and then the part where he like goes to look for the note and it's blank. And I was like, oh, you're an idiot. You didn't like, cause she's going to have to burn it to see it.
I didn't think anything of that, which is crazy. I don't know how I didn't, but yeah, I'm not surprised you picked that up.
See, so here's the thing, a little backstory about me. When I was little, I was very obsessed with spies and detectives. In fact, I have every Nancy Nancy Drew book.
Yeah.
And when I was little, I used to dress up as Nancy Drew, and I had a briefcase and the coat and everything, and I would go around the house and like solve all the mysteries. I still have my magnifying glass.
Oh no.
Brought it along. I was very, very into that. I had like all sorts of like spy gear and like detective gear. And I think that's always been in me. So I will never take anything at face value. I'll always be like, there's something else behind that.
Yeah.
Like, let me figure out what that like actually is.
Right.
So I'm a detective at heart.
Is that, does that mean we're going to have to talk about that Emma Roberts, Nancy Drew movie at some point?
I think so.
I think
we have
that
to.
might be that. Look out for that in the coming months, guys.
Yeah, that'll be incredible. I'll dress up as I'll bring out my outfit again. I think I still have the coat. It might not fit me, but maybe I'll figure it out.
We'll see. No, but that's which is what I really appreciate. Like talking with you about this too is like you, like I said, you have that kind of interest always growing up with detective stories and spies, and whereas me, I'm very new to this genre, so I think I like saw things like that different way. Like that little cue, I thought nothing of it, and then ended up paying off. And you were like, I knew it. Oh. But yeah, got a little excited there. But yeah, so that's definitely, and also too. I mean, that's honestly like the skill of like his writing too. Like especially even in the beginning, like he also uses. I'm assuming this is something that's very common in murder mysteries as an unreliable narrator. I'm assuming that's something that happens a lot. Like. As all the characters in the beginning during the interrogation are telling their versions of the story, they're visually different.
I loved that. Yes, I really loved that part. How it's like, oh, well, you know, I was like around Dad. Like I was always his favorite. So like she was her bringing the cake. and then the next was like Walt. And he was like, oh, you know, after our conversation, we just went back to normal. Everything was fine. And he brings the cake.
Right.
And like, and it's different in every scene. And I think that's just so interesting. Like I loved that little bit there with like it was really good, like even down to the whole situation with Fran by the end, and she's saying like you did this and then you like listen back and you're like it wasn't you, it was Hugh, which I think was a really interesting little touch there.
I watched Rian Johnson's commentary on the Blu-ray for Knives Out, and he like was talking about how like really like careful they had to be to make sure that would work. So she had to deliver it in a way that it was very you know, just like convincing.
Yes, that she was dying.
Dying and saying Hugh.
Yeah.
And it makes sense too with the character, because you're thinking to yourself at first, well, why would she say Hugh and not Ransom? Hugh made the help call him. I mean,
yeah, and again, that was another thing that they mentioned at the forefront of the movie that ended up coming back to
fruition,
so.
And it works. So it's like, this is so smart, and I love this so much.
Yeah, it was very, very intricate, very detailed. I think they were did a very good job with like structuring the movie
Mm-hmm.
and like making sure that those points did mean something in the end, and that nothing was really there just because like it was all meant to be there,
Right.
except for that one Nazi kid.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, even that one, I sort of understand.
even
it,
then,
but I get why you're
yeah.
saying that. And even on top of that too, like I mentioned how this was shot digitally, but they made it to look like film. But even he's very particular, even with the way he
Yeah.
moves the camera. Like most of it's very steady, very smooth, and kind of stylistic with the whips and pans and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it made me recognize even more. I don't know if you noticed the scene where they read the will and Martha leaves the house, and like the shot starts and it's very smooth coming in.
Oh, the handheld.
And then it just
Yes.
switches into handheld when the family comes out of the house, and it just goes.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
And I
I thought
believe
that was
that's-
really incredible.
Yeah, I think that was. I believe that was the only time that it went handheld in the entire movie. And
Yeah.
I didn't notice it until my second time, but obviously, like I think that's just a cool way to convey like the chaos that was going on and how confused she was. Like I really love that moment.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting choice
Yeah,
of filming that. I really liked that whole thing. It just shows like the chaos of just what was happening
Right.
in that moment.
because I just oh my god, I knew like as soon as she would get read the will that like I mean you already knew how they kind of felt about her beforehand, but they were very subtle about it, and you could just kind
Yeah,
of
they at least tried to
they
make
tr-
it look
right.
like they like
They
it.
tried
Yeah.
to care. They tried to act like they care. But as soon as it was read, it was like,
Yeah.
no, you bitch, that's my money. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's like
and they suddenly were, she was the enemy. Yeah.
And Jamie Lee Curtis
So-
is like, you were sleeping with him, weren't you, or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
God,
and it's
Jamie?
so how fast everything turned and how they dropped the act of like, let's pretend like we're nice to her.
right,
Like, she stole our money. Like, let's go
right.
after
Let's
her.
go get her.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, y'all are ruthless.
They're
You're the
ruthless.
worst.
Yeah. It's
Um,
yeah. So that was a fun scene there.
No, definitely. But oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was gonna say we haven't mentioned, I think, what I consider the elephant in the room, and that is the accent.
I was
Daniel
literally
Craig's
going to
accent.
talk about Daniel Craig. That was like my main.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I really wanted to talk about Daniel Craig too, and that accent. Oh my God, that accent.
Yeah.
is so good.
I think it's really interesting to see because he's very famous. Everyone knows James Bond, you know,
Right.
and you know that he's a very British man, and so when you hear this like Southern drawl accent, and it's almost unsettling at first, but I think it works really well.
love it.
Like it's so overdone, and it makes his character like so goofy, but I
Right.
think it works so well with
It
the
fits.
movie.
I think it fits the movie so well, and
Absolutely.
it's definitely influenced by I can't pronounce it, Poirot from Agatha Christie's books, right?
Oh.
Did I say his name?
Yeah,
I know that was kind of like an influence he had, Ryan Johnson for that character.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was like a choice as an actor to do that, or if it was like
it was in the script.
okay, it was in the script to have that. Okay.
And when Ryan Johnson wrote the script, he had no idea who was gonna play him. So I
Yeah.
get it. And yeah, no, but that's definitely one of the best qualities because he's already like such a fascinating character. Like already in
Yes.
the beginning, like in the interviews, like the interrogation at the beginning, he's just lingering in the background and then he taps the piano like
Yeah.
ding.
he's
I'm
like he's like this very mysterious guy, and then just from the moment he opens his mouth, it's just very jarring of just like, who is this
Right,
man? Because
right.
this is, which I think is really an important aspect to that, because when you're making a movie, you don't want people to go in saying, oh, that's Daniel Craig. You want it to say, okay, that's the detective.
That's
like,
Blanc. That's Benny
You
Blanc.
want to, you want to be able to separate them, and I think using that accent, it did that. Like it was
It really
very
did
like,
that.
this is not the same guy who played James Bond. This
No.
is a detective. He is a standalone person.
Right.
So I think
And
that was interesting.
I knew he could do it too because I don't know if you've seen Logan Lucky, but he also has a very ridiculous accent in that movie that he like.
Oh, that's
pulls
the one
off
with
really
Adam
well.
Driver, right?
Yes. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot he was in that. It's been a long
Yeah.
time since I've seen. But yeah, he also pulls off a really ridiculous accent in that. So I knew he was
Yeah.
like up for it.
Capable of it, yeah.
Right. But I think it was just so cool too because once you first hear about him, it's like, okay, he just solved this really important case. He's this great detective. And then even Toni Collette's like, I read a tweet about a headline about like your case
Yeah.
or whatever. So it's like,
Which,
no, go ahead.
oh, I was like, which I think adds again to that whole like this is a modern time and this is like this is very specific to her character and who she is. So she's like, I'm not even I won't bother with reading the whole article. I'm gonna read the headline that's in a tweet.
Right,
like,
which I think is honestly like a very common thing for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that was like perfect like to put in that moment. But yeah, but then so you have this idea that he's already this really good detective, but then as the course of the movie goes along, you don't really know where his mind is at. So you're wondering, I'm like, is this guy like legit? Like, is he really a good detective? And then the final scene hits and he spills everything, which I will say too, he memorized actually that entire last scene, which I guess isn't really surprising when you remember he's a theater trained guy.
Yeah.
But like he just knew all of that, and like the way he spills it all out, it's like, okay, this guy's like a legit like great detective.
Yeah. It was, yeah, I think that was a really great scene. I loved that. Of just it's like the ending of. Have you ever seen Clue?
No, I have not.
You got to watch Clue. It's really good.
Yeah.
Tim Curry.
Oh,
what a wonderful man.
What a man.
What a man. I love
What
him.
a man.
But I think like that whole ending scene of Clue where he's like running through like this is what happened and he's like da 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 and like but it
Girl,
so
you're
it was
the ending.
I didn't say anything. All I said was that he came up with the answer.
Okay.
So like it had that aspect of it being very like so this is what happened and then this is what happened, but it was like still slowed down and easier to comprehend, because that's one thing I will say in Clue, that it's a little bit like you have to be like wait what did you say, because like I missed all of that. So I think they did a really good job with like unfolding what actually happened there, and I think just overall the whole scene was really interesting to see.
Especially that like that amazing donut hole quote.
The donut hole analogy. I loved that.
Love it. Because what was crazy is Ryan also almost cut it out of the movie, but then Daniel Craig was like, no, we got to keep it. And then he tried it and he was like, okay, yeah, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's
so good.
It was just so, it was too much, but also it went so well with the tone of, because like you have this like very serious and almost like gloomy style of the movie of like what's going on around the setting, and then you have Daniel Craig's character who's like, he's a serious guy, but also he like has like this like weird quirky side to him. And I think like the whole analogy with that and him going like a little too far with it was just so perfect. Like it just it fit his character. It goes along with like the accent. It all fits his character. It's a little too much, but it's perfect for him.
It's just crazy how it's so over the top, but it fits the movie so well.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah,
like,
and it should be out of place in a movie like that.
Right.
But it's not.
It's not.
It fits so well.
It's so good.
It's like a donut hole fitting inside of a donut.
Literally, I have the quote right here. Tell me if this makes any sense whatsoever. I spoke in the car about the hole at the center of this donut, and yes, what you and Harlan did that fateful night seems at first glance to fill that hole perfectly. A donut hole in the donut's hole, but we must look a little closer. And when we do, we see that the donut hole has a hole in its center. It is not a donut hole at all, but a smaller donut with its own hole, and our donut is not whole at all. Like, how do you...
Incredible.
How do you...
It's incredible.
How it's... Yeah. It's so good.
That was... Yeah, I think that was a great scene.
And then the way... Not only the way he delivers it too, but the way it cuts back to Marta looking so confused.
Yeah,
to me, she's like, kind of like the reaction we're all having.
Yeah,
like, it's so awesome.
It's interesting.
And he was actually the first person they cast for this movie, and like I was saying, it makes sense honestly because they're doing a Knives Out 2 and 3. All we know is that Rian Johnson's directing, and Daniel Craig's the only one that's gonna star. So I'm assuming it'll probably just be his next cases. And actually, Netflix bought the rights to the movies, and Rian Johnson, Daniel Craig, and the producer are all getting paid $100 million each to do these movies. Yeah. Wow. So clearly they did something right here.
Yeah, they clearly did something right. I mean, it's a great movie, so
yeah, I
understand.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think overall, it was just such a good movie. Yeah. Where are we at on time?
On time, we are about 50 minutes in, around that.
Okay, so we can start doing final remarks.
Yes, I was gonna ask you before we go into the. Do you have any other final points you wanted to make?
The only thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot to, was I think it's so funny, like that opening scene where she finds him dead, where Fran finds him dead, and so, like, you would like normally expect it to be like in a murder mystery movie, you would be like a like a scream, and then like, or like her like dropping something, but she goes in and she's like, shit.
Shit, and she's like trying to pick up her, like she didn't drop the.
She's
tray,
like, oh yeah, I know. She's like trying to figure herself out. She's like, what? So I thought that was a really funny
just
little
like an
thing to add
reaction.
there.
Even, I mean, in a way, that's like
Yeah.
a different way you would expect someone to react to that. The way she reacts, it is so funny.
It's so funny, and it's so out of place for this movie, but also I think just sets up the idea of like, throw out everything you knew about murder mysteries. This is not the same thing. This is something different. So
But at the
I
same
think
time,
that
this is
was,
exactly what you would expect.
but
from a
it's the
whodunit.
exact, it's the same formula. So like
Yeah.
it works out, yeah. So I
glad
thought
you,
that was good.
Yeah, I'm glad you saw that opening scene finally.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally saw it. Yeah, this I've seen Knives Out now. I want to say this last time I watched it, which was 2 days ago for the podcast, and that was probably I think my 5th time watching it.
Oh wow, I've only seen it. So I had not seen it since I originally saw it in the theater. I bought it on Black Friday. I have a problem with buying movies and waiting too long to watch them, even though I know I will. So I watched it a second time to show Marie because she had not seen it, and then I watched it again recently with the commentary on for this. So and I definitely want to rewatch it again and again. And I cannot wait for the sequels. I'm so excited for those.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Definitely, I wanted to just make one final point. I also thought it was just really interesting how this touched on immigration and class. Like, not only like
yes,
you have that dinner scene where like they just are talking about it, and then then Don Johnson's like, Marta, come over here, like, and you're just like, oh, why are you doing?
Don't
that
be
to
that
her?
guy.
Like,
yeah,
I don't know why you're trying to bring over to prove your point when you're like clearly in the wrong here.
Yeah,
and,
it's
and
frustrating.
like including
to
her
see.
in that is just so messed up.
It's
the same
frustrating,
time.
but also it plays so well into like his character and who they are.
Yeah.
And I actually, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, literally, you just reminded me that literally in that moment while he's talking to her, he subconsciously gives her his plate when he's done. Because, like, to help. And
he's like,
that.
he's whatever.
Right,
yeah.
he does this. And I was like,
he doesn't even bother to look at her as he's like handing her
exactly,
the plate. Yeah, it's
exactly.
like another thing. He's like, all right, I'm done with you now. You can leave. Like
Right.
it's like you're not important anymore.
Yeah.
Which I think is so interesting to see. I read in another article like with an interview with Ryan Johnson about the whole the whole thing about class and how that plays into it. And he was like, I don't want it to be like a movie about, eat the rich. It's a movie about people who are so greedy and they don't even realize it, and that they start playing into this role of this rich person, and again without realizing it, they just become this person. So that was like the main focus there. So I thought like overall the whole message there was really interesting to see.
No, and definitely, and some of those lines that some of the characters say, like, definitely fit into that. Like, Jamie Lee Curtis saying that she's self-made, when it's like her father gave her all that money, and Chris Evans saying, like, this was an ancestral family home.
And
It's like, bro, no, he bought it off like this, I forgot who, but they brought it off someone else that's not from here.
Yeah, who was like an immigrant. So like,
right.
Again, it just plays into the whole thing of like their clouded view of how they live their lives, and it's interesting to see all of that.
No, definitely, and it plays into the final shot, which I think is amazing, when they're all looking up to her at the house, and she's holding the mug, and it says
my house, my rule.
One of the first shots in the movie is the My House mug, and you're like, okay, that's Harlan's, whatever. And the way it just comes full circle is like
full circle. I thought that was a beautiful ending shot. It was so
perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. So, those are our final thoughts on Knives Out. Did you want to go ahead and give your score?
Sure, yeah. So, again, I really love this movie. I've seen it 5 times now. I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say would keep you from like a higher score, besides, I know you mentioned like Jaden's character?
Yeah, I would say just like Jaden's character is one of the main things. Another thing would just be, I don't know. I don't know if it was like that I was looking so hard to find like those like really like smaller details, and they weren't there. Everything was so in your face. And I don't know.
You want a little more subtlety, maybe?
I think maybe like just a little bit more subtlety to it, but
Okay.
also I don't hate it. I don't hate the way that it was delivered. So I don't know. I could be swayed to like push it up to a 9, but that's why
Yeah.
I stick with an 8.5. I don't think it's a
No.
perfect
No,
movie.
that's definitely.
Yeah.
Get it.
But I think it was a really good movie overall. Enjoyable watch.
Definitely. I will say if I did have an issue with this, it would be as important as I think the opening interrogations are, they do feel a little slow.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's not an uncommon issue because even Ryan Johnson was talking about every person he sent the script to was like, the first 30 minutes is kind of a drag, but everything else is like great.
Yeah, it's very like, yeah.
But I understand its importance. But still, having said that, I thought about this and I think I'm giving it a 10.
A 10. Okay.
Yes,
wow.
because when I first saw it, it was like a 9 and it stuck with me till a 9. But then I watched the commentary and I rewatched it again and I just realized every detail and everything he wanted to do here is just perfectly achieved. Like,
It's all perfectly placed. Yeah.
For a murder mystery, for me, I feel like he achieved just everything that you
Yeah.
needed to achieve.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. I'll give it a 10. Screw it.
All right, great. Yeah, so for me is I need you to earn that 10. Like I need you to
that's
put
why
in the
I
blood,
thought
sweat,
I
and
have-
tears.
I have not given a movie I have not given a movie a 10 since maybe like Blade Runner, like 3 years ago. I am very
yeah.
particular, but I just thought about it. I was like, I can't. I feel like giving it a 9 for me. I can't. I had it a 9 for so long, but I understand.
I don't think I can even think of a movie that I've given a 10. I'll give it like a 9.999, but I won't give it a 10. I refuse to because I always feel like there's always room for improvement.
Oh, for sure.
So I think that's also like a personal thing in my life where it's like I could always do better. Like I'm doing good, but I could do better.
That makes sense. I mean, honestly, if we were really to break it down, I'd probably say like 9.5 for
Yeah.
this. But I'm like just straight up 8, 9, 10, whatever. But I'm cool with you doing 0.5 or whatever. That's cool.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, that is our discussion on Knives Out. I just wanted to actually. Oh, go ahead. Do you have something to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. This is a great movie. Again, if you haven't,
we forgot to say spoiler alert.
yeah, spoiler alert. So
we meant to say
you know,
that like at the top. If you have not seen Knives Out, I hope you did not listen to this. It's
yeah,
on
just
Prime.
stop ahead of time, watch it, and then come back.
Come
and
back.
Then listen in.
Listen
Yeah,
to us. So sorry.
yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
But that's about it. It's a great movie. I would definitely recommend watching it if you haven't already, which I hope that you have watched it
and
already.
I definitely recommend repeat viewings because you will pick up on so many details.
You'll pick up a lot more.
For sure. So, did you want to tell them what our next movie was going to be for next week?
So our next movie is going to be. Can you tell them? Because I forgot.
You don't know it?
Eighth grade.
We were talking about 8th grade.
Eighth grade.
So very excited to talk about that. That's Bo Burnham's movie. We love Bo Burnham here, and we love the movie, so we're going to talk about that. And it's streaming right now on Showtime. Also, if any of you out there are students and you have Spotify, Showtime actually comes included with that. So there you go. That's your way to watch it. Just to say one more time, right now, we finally are on all of the major audio streaming platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. I don't think you can leave reviews on Spotify, but if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, please do with your feedback.
Yes.
Please do. That'd be great. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to see the video version of this podcast. We are In a Wider Screen podcast, and we are also now on the social medias. So we are on Twitter at In Wider. We are on TikTok at In a Wider Screen, and on Instagram at In a Wider Screen podcast. So, is there anything else you wanted to say before we head off?
Thank you for watching.
Please, thank you so much.
Please, yeah. Please keep watching. I know, we're new at this, but hopefully, each episode we get a little bit better. We learn from our mistakes and
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really enjoy doing this. I think this was a fun episode to do. I love this movie.
Yes.
But yeah, that's about it on my end. Did you have anything else to add?
No, I think that'll be it. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening, for watching, and thank you all for supporting. And we'll see you again next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.